Hello friends and lovers, welcome back to Hades 2, and today we're going over the final weapon in our weapon guide series, the Black Coat, of course. So in this video, we're going to talk about the moveset, then the weapon aspects, and sort of builds and boons that you can get, and then of course the hammers to talk about which ones are good, which ones are bad, etc. Let's get started. So talking about a general moveset with the coat, you have a basic punch move that you can use here if you just mash the attack button. It does attack relatively rapidly, and one good thing to note about the coat is that it scales really well with attack speed. So if you get nimble limbs from Hermes or other methods of just making your attack strike faster, it actually works really well. It scales better than the average weapon because, unfortunately, in Hades 2, it's not very consistent. Like, 20% isn't always 20% kind of thing is the simplest way I can describe it, but the coat does actually work quite well with attack speed. The Omega attack, it puts a little block up in front of Mel, and then at the very end of it, you can release it. One good thing about the Omega attack with this weapon is that you can kind of dash, and you will do the Omega attack at the end of your dash, basically, if you had already started charging it. So that's kind of a good way to think about it. You also start charging the Omega attack a little bit faster if you don't use a dash strike, which is something I kind of struggle to make myself do. I always want to do a dash strike into an Omega attack for almost every weapon here, but you're kind of better off just not doing the dash at the start. That way you begin blocking right away. Now, what can be blocked and what can't? It's super hit or miss, unfortunately. It's like all over the place. What can be blocked, what can't be blocked. Generally speaking, if it's something like on the ground, like fire or one of those Nova effects from Hecate or from Polyphemus, it is unblockable. And there's also some other things out there, but it's all over the place. So the rockets, which is the special button here, I have a love-hate relationship. Super cool move. I love the idea. I love the premise of it. I hate how much they miss. You know what I mean? It's the simplest way I can describe it. I hate how much they miss, but you can kind of weave them into your attacks kind of easily in some ways. If you do a dash into a special into an attack, you can kind of get a free special. It's not easy to do, honestly, and it's actually probably a little bit hard to spot here, right? But notice how I'm dashing and I'm almost interrupting the special move with a dashed attack right afterwards. But it's a lot of work to get used to, that's for sure, in order to make good use of it, you know what I mean? The Omega special, you got this lock-on missiles, and they will always hit, but they love to just do this fanciful little roundabout around the enemies, right? But anyway, the special, pretty much this whole weapon tends to do really well with on-hit effects like Splash or Scorch, maybe Blitz. You know, those things basically tend to work really well with this more than anything else. But why don't we get into the weapon aspects now? All right, so first up, we got aspect Mel. Your attack, sprint, and move speed are faster. That's actually an interesting thing I tend to forget about myself. I don't know about the rest of you, is that move speed and sprint are actually separate. You know, some things just give you move speed, some things just give you sprint speed. So this is denoted that it gives you both, actually. So you both walk natively faster, but you also sprint faster. I know, little detail, maybe it doesn't matter that much, but aspect of Mel, it's all about your attack speed. So like I said earlier, attack speed tends to work really well with this weapon. You also charge up the Omega attack a little bit faster. You could kind of go either way here into a big Omega attack build, maybe, or you could go into a controller disconnecting. But yeah, if you wanted to do a big Omega attack build, I'd probably recommend Apollo's attack more than anything. I mean, Aphrodite works, but I don't know. With the Omega attack, that larger area that Apollo gives you feels actually really nice with this. Like, that extra AoE feels pretty good. Not so much if you're just spamming the regular attack. If you're just spamming the regular attack, I think I would just recommend Poseidon, really, for the most part, and try to get some attack speed. It's one of the few things in the game that feels pretty good with attack speed, is what I would describe it as, if you actually get a good amount of it. If you manage to get, like, the Ares Legendary or something like that, then, you know, it's again, kind of one of the few things where if you manage to hit that 100% attack speed cap, you really feel it. It's really funny. It's really goofy. It's just kind of hard to get going in that sense, you know what I mean? But you get on-hit effects like Poseidon's attack boon. You can get Zeus's static shock there as well. There's probably something else I'm not really thinking of in terms of on-hit effects. But yeah, those work really well. It's super simple. Just hold down the attack button. Like I said, you can kind of get into working with the special as well here. This is me holding down both the attack and special button at the same time, so you can see it doesn't really work like how you might hope. However, if you mash them both at the same, if you mash them kind of a little bit, you can actually kind of get some free specials. So again, I have auto fire on, which means I can just hold down the attack button at this point. So if I just slide my thumb from special and then start holding down the attack, you kind of get a free special out of it. And you just do that from time to time, and you reset the special a little bit, because the special has its own cooldown, right? So in other words, you can kind of get free specials while also attacking, but it definitely takes a little bit of work and takes a little bit to get used to. Next up, you got an aspect of Selene, one of the more unique aspects we got in the game because it starts with its own particular hex, right? You start with Skyfall, a hidden hex that strikes multiple foes and applies Shine. The hex is ready after 60 magic. You see what Shine does here. Afflicted foes take plus 50% more damage from your Omega moves, lasts for 8 seconds. It actually lasts quite a bit of time. So this aspect, you want to spend a lot of magic, essentially. So in terms of, the moveset is identical to what we just talked about, but you want to start using your Omega moves so that you can then start spending magic. So generally speaking, I think it's fun and probably best with this aspect to dive into the hex, which means you probably want Ares in the build because he has the God Sent hex for this, and it's actually quite strong too. I can't easily show you the Path of Stars, I don't think, actually. Yeah, it won't let me show it to you here. But yeah, it's random every run what the Path of Stars looks like for this aspect anyway, and how you actually upgrade the hex. But using something like Cut Above works well here, and all the other plus magic spending boons. This means that your Omegas cost 5 more magic, which is good in an aspect where you just want to quickly charge up your hex. Does that make sense? You know, Fine Line from Hera is amazing for this too, you know, so you just want to be spamming those Omega moves as quickly as possible. Controlled Burn is really good from Hestia as well. That's plus 10 magic on your Omega special. Very strong. And you could probably get to the point where you're just letting loose a very quick Omega special. Don't charge up the whole thing. Get that hex out, and there you go. You can just kind of rinse and repeat that. Now, while the hex is going, you cannot charge a new hex soon after that, unfortunately. So you kind of just got to wait around for that. Maybe make sure you get your magic back up or something. But that's kind of the bread and butter here. There's not much else to say about it. You just want to get into spamming those Omegas. I tend to have an easier time spamming the Omega special because you can just do it faster. Whereas with the Omega attack, it's just a little bit slower, it feels. You know what I mean? You could do a bunch of very small Omega attacks. Weirdly, you'd think something where you are putting up a literal block in front of Mel would feel safer, right? But I kind of don't feel like it does. I'd rather just take the additional range from the Omega special, honestly, and use that to charge up our hex. Spam out that hex. You know, get those Moonbeam upgrades, so use Selene's Keepsake and things like that. If you really want to, since you know you're going to be using a lot of Omega moves, you could turn on the Knight maybe and go back and forth between them. But again, if most of your damage, if you do manage to, if you do manage to get a lot of those magic spending boons like Fine Line, Controlled Burn, Cut Above, stuff like that, that's going to be the majority of your damage plus the hex. So you kind of don't got to worry about the damage you're delivering from your attack or special. In other words, don't worry too much about what kind of boons you put on it. Don't worry like, oh no, I only got a common this or that thing, you know. It's fine. It's honestly fine. So you probably want Hitch to start out for this build, you know, or you could start with Born Gain from Hera. Either way, you probably want to take Hera at the start of a run like this. That way you can get the Hitch effect, you can get Born Gain, you can get Fine Line, then segue into Hestia or Ares, and there's probably another one. Oh, Poseidon for Ocean Swell too there. At some point, put on Selene's Keepsake so you get more Paths of Stars. It's fun. It's really fun. All right, aspect of next, you have Omega Boost, which lets you produce Night Spawn. After you activate it, Night Spawn damage is 75%. What the hell are they talking about here? So, first of all, it does work. I know that I only ever bring up the Knight when we look at our Arcana cards here, I'll admit. But it does work with the Knight, in theory, if you want to start using your Omega moves after you do the Omega Boost, which is its own Omega move. So when you start sprinting, you start charging it up, run into an enemy, there you go. You can see the buff timer next to our magic bar down there, which gives you additional little blasts beyond the initial one, if that makes sense. So you can't really hit the same enemy with all these blasts. It might kind of work with an enemy with a very large hitbox, you know, namely Typhon or something like that. But it's very hit or miss. But the Night Spawn are pretty good. It's okay that they deal reduced damage because what you probably want to be doing is getting on-hit effects again. So once again, we're kind of back to Hestia for applying Scorch or Poseidon for those splash effects. That way you get the additional splash effects out of the Night Spawn. So that's generally what you want to be doing. In case we haven't read the tooltip here, for Night Spawn, your attack and special also split in two that deal reduced damage, and it lasts for 5 seconds. So, I mean, that's kind of what you'd want to be doing is just charging this bad boy up, running in, start attacking, etc., etc. Again, you can kind of weave in the special a little bit here, too, when you have the Night Spawn going. You know, like kind of slide your thumb onto the special briefly and then bring it right back, you know, especially if you have multiple curses going on between your attack and special. That's usually a really good strategy. Now, it's interesting. Like, this aspect is kind of interesting, right? The Omega boost here, actually, like, I have a lot of people asking me, how do you really make use of the Omega boost? You know, how do you do, like, an Omega boost only run? It's like, I mean, you could, but it's not really worth thinking that hard about. I know it's 300 damage, which isn't horrible, but it's not amazing either. It falls off very, very quickly here. So I don't know if it's really worth thinking about the Omega boost damage, to be totally truthful, is what I'm trying to tell you. And you need to focus on that attack damage, maybe the special damage too. So Zeus on the special is probably great with this, and then you put like Poseidon on the attack. Go for Poseidon's Legendary, Bing Bang Bosh, kind of Bob's your uncle. I think that's all you can really do with it. Lastly, my favorite aspect with this weapon, you got Shiva. You have Purifying Grace, which absorbs Omega Special Blast to grow destructive. The max ranks is 6. So what the hell are they talking about here? There are tooltips on the right side there again, but I'll kind of explain it best that I can. And once again, I'm sorry, but the Knight is an important one for this aspect, I do think, is you want to go back and forth between Omega Special and Omega Attack, ideally, with this weapon. So you're going to need a ton of magic with this bad boy. Like a ton. So you might just want to start with a magic regen. You know, you could consider Flood Gain from Poseidon, or you kind of just go Born Gain for usual. Make sure you start with Hecuba for sure there. You know, so the Omega Special costs 45. It charges almost instantly. It is incredibly fast. However, if you try to do more than one Omega Special at a time here, the next one will simply override the first one. So you can't stack this up, unfortunately. So what you want to do, you can see we have 5 destructive stacks down here. Can I show it with my mouse? I can. That is our current destructive stacks. Don't pay too much attention to that. Don't worry like, oh, I got to build it up, and then I got to unleash the biggest Omega attack you've ever seen. Don't worry too much about it. Don't pay that much attention to it. Get what you can without having to constantly monitor it, and you'll do much better. I really do think. Focus on not getting hit, basically, instead of focusing on how many stacks you got. So ideally, what you do is, you know, you're running up to an enemy or you're entering a chamber with enemies, right? You throw out Omega Special, you dive in, and then you start charging an Omega attack, basically. And you unleash toward the end of that Omega Special popping, and you get the additional damage that way. Or, you know, again, I kind of brought this up how it's faster to block if you use a regular attack instead of a dash strike. And that is particularly true with Shiva, whose dash strike is much longer. So what you might want to do is, you know, you can do that. You can see how flimsy it kind of looked, because we're also not getting the Omega Special stacks. You know, you could throw it on yourself maybe even and just hope that the enemies come to you. That's sort of one way to do it. But generally speaking, you just want to rinse and repeat this. Throw that in, you know, charge an Omega attack, unleash, dash away, throw out another Omega Special, etc. Rinse and repeat that, and you'll have the best run, I really do think. Go for Apollo's attack on this. It is huge. I mean, Apollo's special is actually really cool with this too. Both his attack and special, that larger area. I know I'm singing the song for Apollo every single one of these guide videos, but it's so massive. It's just hilarious, practically. It is just so funny to just go for these Apollo boons. I can't really understate just how big, how much larger that area is. It doesn't give you percentages or anything here, but so it's just kind of trial error where it works really well and where it doesn't. It works exceptionally well with aspect of Shiva. And then you can go late game into exceptional talent, and if you get enough magic regen, you can really make this pop and deal crazy numbers. This is the aspect where you can get the largest single damage numbers, I think, in the game. You know, because you can charge up that Omega attack without any boons on it to insane amounts, you know? Just, like, absolutely absurd. Like, that's only half the stacks there, right? And we dealt 810 with 1 Omega attack. I think that's pretty much it for Shiva. I don't think there's really other ways to play Shiva that much. I mean, you could use, like, Aphrodite's attack or special, you know, and it would still feel pretty good, but generally speaking, that's kind of just how you want to do it. I don't think there's any other fancy footwork that you could really talk about with it, honestly, but I do really like it. It's just really fun. All right, let's get into the hammer. So first we got Melting Cross. Your attack deals 250 damage to armor. We've seen these melting hammers on every single weapon, and this is a pretty good one, you know. Your attack is quick, and that's a good, healthy amount of armor to get off. It's a good hammer, not, you know, the most exciting hammer, but it does work. It feels like a solid take. Rapid frame, your attacks are 35% faster. That includes channeling your Mega attack. This is a pretty good one, particularly if you're doing aspect of melee and you're just holding down the attack button to spam it out as fast as possible. Same thing with Nyx, you know, it's not bad. It's pretty good. It does, again, this weapon scales pretty well with attack speed, but there are some really good hammers here that tend to make this not feel as interesting. Reaper frame, your attacks have +10 power and deal damage in a larger area. I mean, this one's pretty good again. You know, it's hard to say, like, what's amazing. I have a couple good ones, but this one's, like, decent is how I would describe it. I think Siege Frame, which comes up a little bit sooner, tends to feel better when it says it reaches further ahead. That additional area of further ahead, that additional range, feels a little bit better than Reaper Frame in my mind, although power tends to be a little bit better. But if you're just spamming the regular attack, you probably don't care that much about power because you're probably relying on, say, Poseidon splashes more than you're relying on the actual white damage from the weapon. So if you're worrying about that, then this doesn't feel probably as interesting. And again, the extra range from Siege Frame tends to feel better overall, I would say. So Siege Frame, slightly better, but they're very, very close, I will say. World Collider, your fully charged Omega Attack has plus 100 power. I usually make fun of this hammer and call it a trap, but the truth is, it is funny, it is goofy if you get it going. It's one of the things that can make something like Aspect of Shiva, if you charge up a full Omega Attack, it just lands those biggest numbers in the world, you know? But it is a big investment. You would love more channel speed. You know, you could get something like Rapid Frame to help channel that Omega Attack faster. It's, in a sense, a trap, but it is a fun trap if you actually get the build going and get it working. So I'd recommend kind of trying it. But if you're just looking to win the game, you're not looking to experiment with stuff, I guess you could skip it. Exhaust Riser, your dash strike hits plus 3 times. Probably the best hammer with this weapon. Your dash strike already hits a couple times for some of these aspects here, if I understand it correctly, you know. Not so much with Shiva, but you can see there's already multiple hits going on here. So if you have, like, Poseidon's attack with this, and then you get Exhaust Riser, you can just hit so many times. And then extra AoE, or sorry, the AoE from this, because it does a circle around Mel, it just feels really, really good. And then you just start dash striking constantly, back and forth, dash strike, dash strike, dash strike. And that's all you do for the rest of the run. It's really good. Perhaps a bit boring, though, I might say. Shimmering Rockets, your specials bounce toward up to 2 more foes. It's okay. You know, I never really like relying too heavily on the specials for this weapon, is the truth. And so this doesn't feel great, because the specials, like, it feels like it just takes work for them to actually get to the enemies and land on them and deliver some damage. I kind of talked about the Omega special with Aspect of Selene and how you were better off relying on the damage from something like Fine Line and Controlled Burn. And I'm going to stick to that, where Shimmering Rockets, weirdly, you just don't feel that good about it. Furious Rockets, your specials launch and fly 80% faster. I mean, this is faster, but it also feels like it's not 80%. Like, 80% should feel like, wow, this is night and day. It doesn't feel like night and day. It feels like night and, you know, like dawn is on the horizon or something like that, but still 45 minutes away. That's how it feels. It's not as good as it markets itself, is how I would describe it, sadly. You know, but if you're doing a special build, it's going to be okay. Launcher Frame, your attacks, whenever your attack strike foes, your special has a 25% chance to fire automatically. This one's incredibly fun, even if it's not always really good, but you do need to think about building around it. You know, that means that you want to be constantly attacking, but you also want a decent thing on your special that will actually be useful, because if you don't have, like, a boon on your special at all, it's probably not going to feel very good to get this hammer. But it's just so much fun if you're already spamming the attack boon, right? And then you get that, you can be launching the special. I don't know, it's just really fun. Think about all those free specials you could be getting. It also does work with success rate from Hermes, by the way. I don't know, it's really cool like that, at least. Counter barrage, after blocking with your Omega attack, your special auto fires 5 shots, reloading in 3 seconds. I've never made it really sing, honestly, because, again, I kind of talked about this, but purposely blocking something with your Omega attack with this weapon, you have to kind of just know what is blockable and what isn't, unfortunately. And even then, it just feels like work, you know? It doesn't feel like fun. It feels like work, sadly, which is too bad. You know what I mean? Because this could have been really cool for a big block build or something, but I don't love it. Sun Salvo, your Omega special locks on faster and uses 20% less magic. It's okay. You know, I guess it works with Selene a little bit, but the whole locking on faster, it practically doesn't matter. I think this very rarely does anything, truth be told, and there's almost always a better hammer being offered, no matter what kind of build you're doing. Ripper Rockets, your specials briefly gain plus 5 power for up to 5 consecutive hits to the same foe. It's okay, again. You're gonna hear a lot of it's okays here, I guess. I mean, I guess in terms of, you know, when are you going to be using the special or Omega special a lot? This is probably the best one, I think, that you could get if I were to pick one. You know, if you get all these off at the same time, or maybe Furious Rockets, if I were to guess. It's probably going to be Ripper Rockets, though. All right, we're on to the Shiva-specific ones here. Elephant Rockets, your specials have a plus 30 power and fly dead ahead. This one's good. I like this one, I think. You know what I mean? I think it's strong, you know? It feels strong. It acts a little bit differently, and you might miss enemies a little bit more because you no longer get the reticle, because it acts a little bit more like a slow rocket bomb, like from Hades 1, right? So now you might miss with the special more often, but I don't know. It feels really cool. It doesn't really help build up destructive stacks better, but it'll make your special or Omega special feel more powerful. So I think it's a pretty solid take overall. Counter Supreme, after blocking with your Omega attack, become destructive by up to 3 ranks. I have no doubt that this can be powerful in the right hands, but we've talked enough about unblockable and blockable moves and how the Omega attack with this feels kind of rough and how trying to purposely block moves in order to do a specific thing doesn't always feel great. This is one of those things, you know what I mean? This is one of those things. It's a freebie, so you no longer have to think about using your Omega special. Maybe you can just spam the Omega attack. Technically possible, but I think in practice, it's a lot of work to really get going in to get used to overall, so I don't love it. Awaken Rockets, absorbing Omega special blasts also creates blasts from your special, but you lose 10 magic. Very unique effect here for it. Weirdly, I don't think it's good, even though it sounds pretty good, you know? It might actually sound a little familiar to like Possessed Array or something, but I kind of don't think it feels that great, sadly. It's hard to really get a big Omega special build going with Aspect of Shiva is the way I'm looking at it, where you're really milking it. So maybe that's sort of the issue. It's just never going to be that rapid, you know? I don't know if you can actually make this go any faster where... Oh, sorry, we got the wrong aspect going on here. Where you could actually make this trigger more quickly, so you just kind of get a couple of free specials out of this. You know what I mean? Ideally, is what... In an ideal circumstance, you'd get some free specials out of each Omega special, but I kind of just don't really think it's worth it. Mooncrest Riser, your dash strike hits a larger area and deals plus 40% damage. I don't like it. I kind of don't like the dash strike. I mean, the area is huge, but it's a single hit, and the base damage isn't... I mean, it's all right. I just don't think this aspect is worth building around the dash strike, not like the other code aspects. My feeling, my gut instinct to that is that it's not really worth building around a dash strike with this weapon. So I'm actually not sure about this one. So if you have experience and you did a good run with this, let me know, because I'm on the fence of this one. This isn't me calling it bad. This is me saying I'm unsure about it. Chakra Collider, the Omega attack gains a power shot that deals plus 150% damage. I should have probably brought this up when we first started talking about Shiva, but I think this one's not usually worth it. It's not usually worth it. There's probably going to be a better hammer there. Hopefully there will be a better hammer here. But the destructive stacks, you get plus 50% damage for each destructive stack you have on Mel when you unleash your Omega attack, which means that at max stacks, you're getting plus 300% Omega attack damage. Add on strength, maybe. That's now, what, 320 or 325%? Add on origination, 375%. Add on Apollo's attack boon at, you know, God knows what, you know, like you're almost at 450% damage. So you don't want more percentage, you know, more mult, if we use Balatro terms. You don't really want more percentage with this aspect. You want power. You want base damage. You really, because you're going to have crazy amounts of percentage with this aspect most of the time anyway. So you really want base damage. Power feels really good. So Chakra, not Chakra, I always mix up the names of them, you know, a little bit. So like World Collider, you can get it with Shiva. So that's like kind of funny in its own way. And it's very similar to this, right? But that 100 base power will feel much better. You know, I know you need to get a full Omega attack with, oh my God, I forgot the name again already. World Collider. You got to do a fully charged Omega attack, but you also got to do a fully charged Omega attack with Chakra Collider too. It says it's a power shot, but what they really mean is you release it right at the tip of getting it fully charged, so it's basically the same thing. You know what I mean? And it has a condition that you have to meet that you might accidentally mess up from time to time. So in other words, I think Chakra Collider's bad. All right, that's it for the coat, and that's it for all my weapon guides, I'm afraid, for now. And if you missed any of them, make sure you check the description, because I'll have a link to a playlist that shows all my Hades 2 guides. And if you got any suggestions for things that you'd want to see, things you got questions about, things that you're uncertain about, or just, you know, general ideas for videos, I'm totally open to them. So make sure you let me know down in the comments. I do appreciate you watching, and as always, I will do my best to answer any questions you may have. Like, comment, subscribe, blah, blah, blah. You know what's going on. Anyway, I'll see you in another video.